She allowed her bare feet to dangle in the water, moving them from side to side, delighting in the coolness. She always enjoyed these last few moments before the change took place. She loved the quiet and stillness of the cove, the intangible feeling in the air. Something to her left drew her attention. A lovely large moth with vibrant bluish hues fluttered delicately in front of her. He floated for a long moment, as if to say hello, or perhaps he inherently knew the journey she was about to embark on and wanted to wish her well. She smiled at the moth and extended her hand. For a moment, it seemed as though the moth would land on her hand. However, after a few more magical moments of him hovering, he decided it was time to drift away into the abyss of the cool night. Perhaps he sensed she would change soon. Gently, she touched the emerald green stone that hung around her neck. She lifted the small, jagged pendant and held it up to the sky. It glinted whimsically in the moonlight. She never took a watch with her when she came out to the cove. The deepening hue of the stone was enough to alert her to the time. It was almost midnight. She could feel the beginnings of her transformation. For some reason, she preferred not to watch the process itself. Not because she was scared, but because it was somehow more magical that way. She preferred to simply stretch out on the rock, close her eyes, and feel it take place. It would be over in just a moment anyway. She relaxed and allowed the moonlight to take over her body. As always, the stone that rested on her chest began to warm. It was a pleasant feeling. She relaxed into it, letting the warmth move through her. A short moment later, the stone began to cool. When it was cold again, she let her eyes drift open. She smiled as she glanced down. She wriggled on the rock, testing it out. She ran her hands along her multicolored scales, admiring the dimensions of the hues, the greens, the blues, and the pinks. They all seemed to complement each other so well. She lifted her fin in the air and positioned it against the moon. Droplets of water danced as they fell away. She raised a hand to her chest. Her breathing was ready. It was time. Gently, she hoisted herself from her position on the rock and allowed gravity to take her down into the water, leaving the moon as well as the upper world behind. Being totally immersed in water always felt a little surreal at first, but she quickly adjusted, and soon it became playful. She moved without thought, free-flowing as she floated downward. She twirled fast, then stopped, curled into a ball, then stretched out, swam with strength, then relaxed. Her long blonde hair took on a mind of its own, pointing straight up one moment and then drifting all around her, framing her face the next. She delighted in this part, the first moments of free flow playing in the water as a mermaid, but it was not without purpose. However, it was only for the first part of her journey. She had a destination. The further and further she drifted downward, the more she left the brilliance of the moon's light behind. But the darkness would only last a few moments. She knew a spectacular and illuminous world awaited her. The further she swam downward, the more she felt the pull of the magical underwater realm, as if some alternative gravitational force was drawing her towards it. Suddenly, the beauty of the underwater world opened up to her. The shimmering expanse of the landscape was the most awe-inspiring thing she had ever seen. A beautiful seahorse floated up to greet her. She intuitively knew that she had met this very seahorse during previous explorations, even though she had met and seen so many of them. Sadie and the seahorse danced around one another, gently sending bubbles of various sizes drifting off in every direction. She stretched out lazily and floated face up and watched the happy seahorse above her, shafts of light beaming down and illuminating his vibrant colors. She extended a hand and he lightly touched down, perching momentarily and resting on her index finger, had now been greeted by 15 or so of his kin, and they were all bobbing and dancing joyfully, not for her benefit, but simply because that was what they liked to do. She located her friend in the mix and nodded so long to him, and with that the cluster of seahorses shimmied away into the watery abyss that was their home. She was not sad. She knew she would see them again. She moved toward the wide opening of a cave that she had discovered on a previous journey. This was the cave she loved the most, due to how expansive it was. The undiscovered secrets of the underwater lair were vast, she imagined. And on the previous times she had explored, she barely scratched the surface. She knew it went on, and she never had enough time to fully explore its depths. Each time she went, she aimed to explore a little deeper, as she had already perused the landscapes near the entrance. Swimming past the entryway, she moved at a brisk pace, yet still could not believe the wonders that fell upon her eyes. The large granite walls looked more like giant jewel walls, a blend of saturated pink sparkles and iridescent canvases. Little hollowed-out pockets here and there gave way for little underwater creatures, such as sea urchins and starfish, to burrow themselves away if they so wished. She smiled as she watched a dark blue starfish notice her, and then immediately scurry into one of the pockets. She took a moment to swim up to the hole, slowly, as not to startle him, to say hello. She peered in, letting him take her in. At first he clung to the side of the wall, but after a moment, apparently deciding she was not a threat, slowly edged his way out and greeted her, reaching out with one of his arms and gently bopped her on the nose. She laughed and winked at the starfish, and after whispering to him that she would see him again next time, she twirled on her way, gliding through the magnificent cave.